We continue now at the top of Daf Lamed Amud Aleph in Mesechet Kesuvos. This is Kesuvos Daf 30a. On the previous Amud, the Gemara made a distinction between situations where there's no Havoya, meaning where the Kedushin does not take effect, and then situations where the Kedushin does take effect, but it's not a marriage that is allowed to be maintained. And so the Gemara had asked, well, according to Rabbi Akiva, what's the difference? Because according to Rabbi Akiva, it's not only by Chayve Krisis that the Kedushin does not take effect, but any situation, even Chayve Lavin, we say the Kedushin does not take effect, so there seems to be no difference. Any case where the marriage cannot be maintained, the Kedushin does not take effect. And so the Gemara had answered, according to Rabbi Akiva, by Kohanim, let's say of a situation of Grusha to a Kohen, or let's say Almana to a Kohen Gadol, in that situation, Rabbi Akiva would say that there is in fact a Kedushin, but again, it is not a relationship that can be maintained. But the Gemara asked, what about according to Rabbi Yeshevov's view of Rabbi Akiva? In that view, even in situations regarding the Kohanim, like Almana to Kohen Gadol, and Grusha to a Kohen Hedyot, even those situations we would say that the Kedushin is not to take effect. So what would be the difference according to Rabbi Yeshevov? And the Gemara now answers, Chayve Aseh. You could have a situation of a difference. Let's say the violation is a violation of an Aseh and not a Lav. So over there, the Kedushin is going to take effect, but the relationship cannot be maintained. For example, Mitzri ve'adomi. For example, there's an Aseh that a Mitzri is not allowed to marry into the Jewish community, again, even by converting, or an Adomi, the same thing. That's within the first 3 generations. And so over there, again, the Kedushin is going to take effect, but it is not a relationship that's allowed to be maintained. Rashi says, Chayve Aseh Mitzri ve'adomi besoch shlosha doros, again, within the first 3 generations. Techsev dor shlishi yavo lehem. It says the 3rd generation can enter into the community. Dor sheni, no, not the 2nd one. V'lav haba mechlal aseh aseh. This is a negative commandment that is implied from a positive, so it has the status of a positive commandment. And the Gemara continues, Hanichol Rabbi Yeshevov ila fuke me'tayim Rabbi Simai. That only works according to Rabbi Yeshevov if Rabbi Yeshevov was only coming to exclude the opinion of Rabbi Simai ka'asi shaper. Then your answer is good. Eli tayim de navshe kamar. But if he's just saying independently his own reasoning, so then in that case, kol she'ein lo bia b'Yisrael havlad mamzer. Then he was saying in any situation where the relationship is not allowed, the vlad is a mamzer. V'afilo chayve aseh, and that would include even chayve aseh. In other words, there was a question exactly how to understand Rabbi Yeshevov. And according to the opinion that he wasn't simply excluding Rabbi's view, but he was saying that in all situations, so even Chayve Aseh, the Vlad is a mamzer, and again, there's going to be no Kedushin, the Kedushin will not take effect, and you can't maintain the relationship. So what's between those two ideas? And the Gemara says, "My beinayu." Again, what's the difference between them according to that view of Rabbi Yeshevov? Ika beinayu. The difference is as follows: Be'ula lekohen gadol. If you have a situation of a woman who already had relations, and then she's married, or she gets married to a kohen gadol, so over there the kiddushin will be tofes, but of course it is a relationship that cannot be maintained. And the Gemara says, well, what's the difference? Why in that particular case suddenly is the kiddushin going to work when it doesn't work in any other situation, even by chayve aseh? And the Gemara says, well, that is another leniency. The havale aseh she'eno shava bekol. That is an aseh, but it doesn't apply to everybody. It only applies to kohanim, so it has double leniency. Number 1, it's just an aseh, it's not a lav, and number 2, it's eno shava bekol. Rashi over here says, "Hanicha Rabbi Yeshevov hay kol she'ein lo heter bia dekamar." If Rabbi Yeshevov's statement of any situation where there's no heter bia, that's where we say the vlad is a mamzer. Dekamar alib Rabbi Akiva, which was again Rabbi Yeshevov's view of Rabbi Akiva. Lav klol l'kayel. If that wasn't an across-the-board rule, Ela lav fukim in Rabbi Simai l'chudei was just coming to exclude Rabbi Simai l'chudeya, so that's what it was coming for. Ve'achayve lavin hu depalig, it was simply arguing on chayve lavin and saying no, it extends lo sofe chayve lavin bekuna to add on a situation, not regular chayve lavin, but even in a situation of chayve lavin that are relevant to a kohen, again grusha to a kohen hedyot or almona l'kohen gadol. Avol shum chayve aseh lo hosef, but he wasn't adding on chayve aseh, and he wasn't saying that chayve aseh the vlad is a mamzer. So then shaper matzino lememer. Then you could easily say what we're saying. Ikul beinayu de shemenate moni Rabbi Shimon Menasya chayve aseh. Again, you could say the nafka mina between when a kiddushin takes effect or a situation where it can't be maintained is by chayve aseh. The kiddushin would take effect, but it can't be maintained. Ela ilav ad Rabbi Simai. But if it's not going on Rabbi Simai, v'taymi de nafshei kamer b'shem Rabbi Akiva, and just saying his own statement according to Rabbi Akiva, an across the board rule that we say shekol she'ein lo heter bia b'isha zu avlad mamzer, that any situation where there's no heter bia the vlad is a mamzer. So ma'ikal, remember, what are you going to say in that case? And the Gemara says you'll say as follows: Be'ula l'kohen gadol. If you have a situation of a be'ula to a kohen gadol, she'ein bo lav de almonos v'gerish and el aseh. There it's a kohen situation, and it's only a violation of an aseh. The besula yikach v'lo be'ula. It says that a kohen gadol has to marry a besula and not a be'ula. So again, there you have that leniency, that extra leniency that it's an aseh and it's an oshava bakol. Rashi over here says, Vim Tomer, if you're going to ask the following, Yesh kan lav de zona. There is a lav over here because she's a zona. It's not true. It's not true that if an unmarried man and an unmarried woman have relations, that doesn't make her a zona. El Rebbe Lozer, the only Tana that says that is Rebbe Lozer. A zona really is a situation where she has relations with somebody who's disqualified. Rashi points out, we're talking specifically about a be'ula where you're having relations with her shalo kedarka, the kedarka, because if it was kedarka, su like a knas, then in that situation there actually would be no fine. And again, we're talking over here situations of the knas. And the Gemara says, "U'ma'ishna hay asay mishar asay demoda bei Rabbi Akiva." What's the difference in this asay from other asays where Rabbi Akiva admits over there that it is a mamzer? And the answer is the havale asay she'eno shava b'kol she'eno noeg ela b'kohen gadol. This asay is only by kohen gadol. Aval asay the mitzri v'adomi noeg b'chol hakol. The asay, when you violate an asay by a mitzri and adomi, that's by the entire community. And we will just note over here, when Rashi says Be'ula Shalo Kedarka, what Rashi is referring to is the fact that by an onus, by a rape situation, you only pay the fine when the woman is a Basula. So if we're talking about a case over here of Be'ula L'Kohen Gadol, so what do you mean? There is no payment of Knas over here. So Rashi says, the case of the Be'ula L'Kohen Gadol is that the relations that she had previous to the Kohen Gadol was Shalo Kedarka. It was not in the normal fashion. And therefore she still has the status of a Basula in terms of the halacha of the payment of the fine for a case of onus. And the Gemara, Kiyuzamar of Chisda says, Hakol Modim, everybody agrees, B'Boal Anida, if a person has relations with a Nida, again, it's talking about a situation of onus, of rape, Shemeshalim Knas, that in that case he would pay Knas, and the Gemara explains, L'man Domer Yesh B'Havaya, according to the one who says that the onus payment only exists if the Kiddushin takes effect, so Hanami Yesh B'Havaya, by a Nida also, the Kiddushin would take effect. And L'man Domer Ruya L'Kaiman, according to the one who says that the onus payment only takes effect if it's a relationship that can be maintained, Hanami Ru'iyah L'Kaima. When it comes to a Nida, that relationship, of course, can also be maintained. A person can maintain a marriage to a Nida. And the Gemara continues, Our Mishnah comes to exclude the position of Rabbi Nechunya ben Hakana. Rashi over here explains, Our Mishnah said that if a person has relations with a sister, again, a situation of onus, a situation of rape, so he has to pay that fine. Now, even though he's already chayv kares for that act of relations, so you see that even though there's a chiyuv kares according to the Mishnah, there's a chiyuv tashlumin. That's different than Rabbi Nechunya ben Hakana. Rabbi Nechunya ben Hakana, he holds that if there's a chiyuv kares, there is no chiyuv tashlumin. Rabbi Nechunya ben Hakana, the Tanya, as we learned in a brayso, Rabbi Nechunya ben Hakana haya oses Yom Kippurim kashavas l'tashlumin. Rabbi Nechunya ben Hakana, he held that Yom Kippur and Shabbos are identical when it comes to payment. Meaning to say, Ma Shabbos, just like by Shabbos, let's say you violate Shabbos, and in that same act, you also should be chayiv a payment. You also should be tashlumin. So Ma Shabbos mischayiv benafsho pater min tashlumin. Just like by Shabbos, once there's a chiyuv, a person is chayiv misa, so then he's pater from tashlumin. Af Yom Kippurim, so too when it comes to Yom Kippur, mischayiv benafsho. Even though by Yom Kippur it's not a chiyuv misa in bezdin, it's just a chiyuv kares, but still that's called mischayiv benafsho upater min tashlumin, and the person is pater from payment in that case as well. And again, that would apply by the case of Baal Achoso. Rabbi Nechunya ben Hakana would not agree with the position of our Mishnah. And the Gemara used my time with Rabbi Nechunya ben Hakana. Well, what is the reason of Rabbi Nechunya ben Hakana? Why does he say that if it's a chiyuv misa bidei shamayim, it's the same thing as a chiyuv misa at the hands of the bezdin? Amar Abaya says, Nemar oson bidei adam v'nemar oson bidei shamayim. The reason is, by death at the hands of a person, it uses the word oson, and it also uses the word oson when it talks about death bidei shamayim, death at the hands of heaven. The Torah or over here brings the psukim. The pasuk says, "V'chiyinatzu anoshim v'nagfu ishahara," talking about a case where people are fighting and then they end up hitting a woman who's pregnant. V'yatzu yiladeh, causes a death. It causes a miscarriage. It says v'lo yeh ason. It uses the word ason. That's bidei adam. And then it says over here also talking about when it says Ukro, Ason Baderech, talks about the fact that Yaakov doesn't want his son to go down to Mitzrayim because something might happen on the road. Ason, there might be again a death bidei shamayim. So therefore it's using the same word. So again, just like Ason by bidei adam pater min hatashlumin, again ma Ason ha'amr bidei adam pater min hatashlumin, af Ason ha'amr bidei shamayim pater min hatashlumin. Just like the word Ason used by bidei adam, there we say there's a p'tor from tashlumin. So too when it comes to bidei shamayim, again misa bidei shamayim, there's going to be a p'tur from tashlumin. Gemara continues, Maskif lo Ravada Barava. Ravada Barava asks the following question: Mimai dechi kamazer lo Yaakov livnei. How do you know that when Yaakov was giving this warning using the word ason to children, altzinu mupachim dividei shamayim nenu? How do you know he's warning about a death that happens because of cold or because of heat, things that are bidei shamayim? How do you know he means to say ason bidei shamayim, that something will happen on the road at the hands of heaven? Diomal arya veganve dividei adam nenu. Maybe he's warning them that on the road there's going to be lions, there's going to be thieves. That's bidei adam. You don't know that Yaakov's word ason is talking about bidei shamayim. And so the Gemara answers, Atu Yaakov aho azir aho lo azir. Do you think Yaakov is warning about this and not this? He's doing both. Yaakov al kol mili azir. Yaakov is warning on all things, including things that are bidei shamayim. And therefore you see again, bidei shamayim, he's using the word ason. But the Gemara continues, V'tzinim pachem bidei shamayim. Then is it really true that when it comes to heat, to cold and heat, that's something bidei shamayim? V'tanya, but we learned in a brayso, hakol bidei shamayim chutz mitzinim pachem. It says everything is bidei shamayim except for tzinim pachem. Sometimes that happens because the person is not careful. Shenamar, like it says, tzinim pachem b'derech ikesh. It talks about the fact that you have cold and heat on the road of the crooked. Shomer nafsho yirchak mehem. And somebody who's careful is going to distance himself from them. It seems to be something that you can keep away from. That's not called death bidei shamayim. V'su arya vegan fi bidei adam. Then when furthermore, our lions and our thieves, is that considered bidei adam? Sometimes that's considered from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'yamar Rav Yosef, but Rav Yosef said, v'chein tani Rav Yechiya, and so Rav Yechiya taught, miyom shechara Beis HaMikdash, from the time the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, afal pi shebotlu Sanhedrin, even though the Sanhedrin was batel, arba misos lo batlu, the 4 misos in Bezin have not been batel, they're not nullified. And the Gemara says, what does that mean? Lo batlu? Do you think they're not nullified? Habatlulu, they are nullified. Obviously there's another meaning. Ella rather, but what does this statement mean instead? And we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Lamed Amud Beis.